Welcome back to the Dungeon Master's Corner. Remember when I said we'd be back to talking about Womford? Well, it's back, and more flammable than ever. This time Nicole, also known as the amazing Piet Piper, took over as the DM, and joining us today is Matt, better known as Scratch.
Alright, and welcome back to DM Corner. Sometimes our DM needs a break, and sometimes he wants to just be a player. So this time, I get to tell you the story about a one-shot I ran after our Plan B campaign ended. It was called Banquet of the Damned, which I found on the DM's Guild by Benoit de Bernardi. I really hope I pronounced your name right because your one-shot was amazing. Joining me today is Matt.
Hello.
And Brian.
Hello.
So, just to give you a quick one-shot summary, basically, our group of adventurers are investigating some strange happenings in the town of Womford, surrounding a pie competition.
It is important to note here that this Womford is canonically the same as the Womford in my Prince of the Apocalypse campaign, where you played Menowin.
Yes, I did. I wanted to finally do right by this town. I had it be rebuilt. They were having a pie celebration to celebrate the anniversary of the rebuild and everything being back to normal.
If you want to know what happened to Womford the first time around, go back and listen to our episode, Womford Burns. Though I think the title gives it away.
Mm-hmm. But the strange happenings were, it started with one of the pie competitors' kitchens burning down. They investigate, it gets pointed to a competitor, which actually would be where we talk about our characters, because this is where they become most relevant.
So I was playing Yortle. He is a turtle barbarian.
And I played Sebastian, the turtle drunken master.
So they investigated Jaxel's kitchen and then went off to talk to Mortimer. Mortimer was a competitor and suspected to be, the one behind the sabotage. So they knock on his door and he doesn't answer, or then eventually he answers very weakly because he himself is ill. That's why he hasn't been seen in a little while. So, in order to get their questions answered for the investigation, my turtles here engaged in some what we call aggressive hospitality.
We stepped in there, forced him into his easy chair. I think were you the one, Yordle, who was keeping him in the chair?
Yes, so we forced our way into his house as Sebastian suggested he should have some tea. It's very calming. So I pushed him into his chair and stood over him to make sure he was comfortably relaxed in his chair, while Sebastian went in and made him some tea.
The poor, sick human man could not in any way outmuscle the barbarian. There was no rolls to this. It was just, you're holding him down, basically, without touching him.
I wouldn't want him to get stressed.
He was terrified. He was sick.
I came back with a nice hot cup of tea.
With which
And we stood over him as he calmly drank his tea.
We made him the tea.
You did make him the tea. He did drink it. I think his hands were shaking the entire time because these two...
I mean, he's sick. It's understandable.
Also, these two huge, turtles just burst into his home.
I mean, we were invited. Kind of.
He didn't stop us.
He did not stop us. No.
He could not stop you.
That's not the point we're making here, Nicole.
So
this is what happens when the DM gets a player character.
Yeah. There's this whole story about, the rules actually being chains for DM, and we have to abide by them. But when you're a player, those chains come off. You can do whatever you want.
I have less power as a god.
Surprisingly. So they they speak with Mortimer. They get some questions. They end up, actually helping him with his little demon problem, which then leads them to finding the demon ash, which will become important later. And then they go to investigate the other competitor in the pie competition, Carla, to find her missing. Supposedly off on a tryst with her elven hunter lover. So they head off to the hunter's cabin in the woods. On the way, there was an ambush set up by a group of wood elves. Now, it was basically a path between two large, sloping hills and such, so the wood elves have good advantage on, seeing the group pushing down that tree that they had weakened on purpose to try to, break up the party or to hurt somebody. Let me tell you, that doesn't really work with turtles. That does not work. The monk decided to run ahead to engage the two that had shown up in the middle of the path to bait them. And he dropped them. He dropped them quick.
I rocked their worlds.
You mean with our 22 base armor class?
Yeah. Like I said, the tree was no threat to you.
I think the tree actually bounced off of you.
Yeah. It did nothing.
I didn't notice.
I think you took 3 points of damage from the tree, and you were like, what was that? They're throwing things!
Yeah, so the wood elves were trying to attack, and these lovely people here, I love them
Monsters.
dearly.
I think the word you're looking for is monsters.
These monsters tore them apart. The only one they left, I think you had thrown a javelin, and you actually pinned this one to the tree, if I remember, and you took him off.
That one I think died because...
No, this is the one that survived.
Oh!
The one that survived is the one I pinned to a tree with a javelin.
You pinned him to a tree,
That's
and then
right.
you went to retrieve him after the fighting was done. After everybody else in his hunting party was slaughtered.
I was thinking about the one who tried to get away. Because there was a scout who tried to outrun me. I was very offended by this wood elf who ran, what did he run, 70 feet and around? So I decided to run ahead of him with my 110 feet of movement, thanks to Step of the Wind, get in front of him, and then beat him to the ground, in front of his friend who was pinned to the tree.
Mm-hmm. So they, seeing the destruction, they actually take this one wood elf into custody. They tie him up, and they decide to use him as a guide through the rest of the forest to get to the cabin, where the actual demon, the Gullibus, was waiting for them. That fight went very well for them. They actually tore her apart pretty easily. That was the door where, to get inside...
Ah.
That was the battering ram.
So yeah, the door was locked, and it just seemed the easiest way in was I backed up, I ran forward, I jumped, and I went into siege mode, which is when a turtle retracts into his shell, and I broke down the door as my own battering ram.
I would like to point out to the audience, what he just described was a 6-foot turtle man running full speed, barbarian speed, at a door. I feel that's a necessary inclusion.
Just a little bit.
Because it was wondrous to watch.
Oh, absolutely wondrous and terrifying. So, after they defeated her, Carla, they actually set fire to the forest where this wood elf had made his home.
To be fair, we set fire to her home,
which
and
set the rest of the
spread
forest.
to the forest.
Fair.
Which I think had the entire elven village in it.
Yes,
Oh,
it
it
did.
had a couple, I'm pretty sure.
So, their job done, the demon infestation figured out and handled, they go back to Womford to claim their reward that they had been promised for handling the investigation and handling any problems that might occur. all while dragging this tied up wood elf.
But Matthew, we were on to her tricks. We knew there were more demons.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why you assume.
We knew that the pies could be, any one of those pies could be infested.
They must have all been infested. You know, there's only one safe thing to do, isn't there, Yordle?
Yep, the only way we can be sure.
Womford must burn.
So we burned the village down.
Interestingly enough, as Nicole mentioned, that demon ash had a fun little property.
Yeah, it has some explosive and, sets things on fire when used, which is actually what destroyed Jaxel's kitchen earlier.
So Yordle and I lined the village, the perimeter of the village, with this demon ash. And we lit it.
So Womford burned again.
1 year to the day.
And what they did after this, they found perfectly safe pie. They sat on a hill overlooking Womford, eating pie, with the sole survivor, Wood Elf, sitting between them, and just watched the place burn.
I mean, we had to decide what to do with him next.
He ended up becoming a character in another campaign of mine, but he now has a tragic backstory of being the sole survivor, of having PTSD from watching everything burn, his whole hunting party being killed by turtles, and being sold into slavery by a hobgoblin slaver that they had become friends with.
Now, friends is a strong word.
Acquaintances.
There you go.
He was there.
He was there. We enjoyed his company well enough. He helped us.
So I guess what I learned the most is I shouldn't be too stuck as a DM. I need to be flexible to what the party is going to do, because they will do unexpected things. I did not anticipate them taking a wood elf hostage. I did not expect them doing the aggressive hospitality. And really, it just helped me think on my feet more as a DM and to be able to respond and roll with what my players are doing. So I guess thank you for joining us for this DM's Corner.
If you'd like to support us, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/reliably chaotic, and maybe help us put about 3 drops of gas in our tanks. You can also drop us a line on Twitter at reliably chaotic. We'd love to hear from you.